really? You can go skiing in Greenland? Well, yeah, man, it's really good. It's awesome. The views are absolutely spectacular. You're kind of skiing down, boarding down, you're pinching yourself. You're like, wow, could this get any more beautiful? I mean, it's just stunning. Having a helicopter in a place like East Greenland, it just allows you to go to places that very few people have ever been, if anyone. And so you're skiing these runs that potentially no one's ever skied before. Or you're skiing powder all the way to the ocean, all the way down to the ocean. This trip, it is a ski trip, but it's also real adventure. We have an itinerary, but we rarely follow it. My name is Matt Edwards. We run a company called Expedition Engineering, and we focus primarily on kayaking, skiing, and surfing. Our whole thing is about finding really remote, unique destinations all over the world. We started in about 2009, and we've sort of been building ever since. We really love to get out there, and we really love to explore. That's our big passion, exploring. We're going to talk about Greenland today, and what we're going to cover is we're going to talk about the place. We're going to talk about skiing in Greenland. Yes, you can ski in Greenland. It's kind of the first thing everyone asks is like, really? You can go skiing in Greenland? Well, yeah, man, it's really good. It's awesome. So we're going to talk about the different trips we run. We're going to talk about West Greenland versus East Greenland, who these trips are for, and we're going to talk about the logistics. It's a logistically challenging place. So how did it all begin? How did the addiction to Greenland begin? And I like to tell people who come on our trips that Greenland gets its hooks into you, it gets its claws into you. It really does. And when people come on our trips in the summer, then they come on the winter and they do the East Coast and they do the West Coast. They're like, I didn't think that I was going to be so infatuated with Greenland, but they really just get a taste for it. And we're going to talk about why in a minute here. Yeah, we started it off with a sea kayaking trip. And then while we were sea kayaking around, we were looking up in the mountains going, wow, like this looks like it would be amazing skiing around here, So the following year, we put together a ski trip with a group, and it was incredible skiing. From there, we just sort of grown, we've developed, we've done trips on the East Coast, we've done trips on the West Coast, and we've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't. And now we've got 3 different trips running. And this is just sort of a compilation video of the trips over the last 10 years. Pretty cool, eh? Really awesome. So Greenland is a big place. It's the largest island in the world if you exclude Australia. It's got the second largest ice cap in the world. It's kind of wedged between Europe and North America. So on the right there, on the east, you've got Iceland, and on the west, you've got Arctic Canada, Baffin Island. Okay, and the 2 towns there, Kulusuk and Manittuk, those are the 2 towns that we utilize for the 3 different trips that we run. The really unusual thing, or one of the really unusual things about Greenland, is that there are no roads that connect the communities. So if you want to go between one community and the next, you can use an airplane, you can use a helicopter, depending on the distance, or you can use a boat. Okay, and then in the winter, if the fjords are frozen and you're just trying to get between small settlements, you can use a snowmobile and dog sleds. So logistically, it's a really challenging place, and it takes quite a while to figure out. But we've been running trips all over the world. We run trips in Svalbard, we run trips in northern Norway, Iceland, Antarctica. And I can tell you, there's no place quite like Greenland. There's just nothing quite that compares to it. And yeah, as I said, people keep coming back. They do the East Coast, they do the West Coast, summer and winter. But what is it? Like, what is it that really attracts them to Greenland? Well, I'd say it's not one thing, obviously. There's a bunch of different things. But let's start with the vastness. It's a big place. And when you're standing on top of a mountain and you're looking out across the view, the vista, and you can just see mountains for as far as the eye goes, the ocean. A lot of the times in the distance, you can see the Greenland ice cap. The ocean's like full of icebergs, glaciers, kuas, everything. Like, it's amazing, right? Like, it's big. It's a big, big place. It has really good variety of terrain. So you've got everything to kind of suit every skier's desire, from mellow terrain and steep terrain. You know, we can make it work for everybody. It's really rugged. So when you're skiing through valleys and stuff, you're looking up at these big granite peaks, these massive glaciers, seracs, everything. Like, it's a really impressive place. People that are looking at the terrain are like, wow, like, this is really, really rugged, big terrain. It's super cool. It's a maritime climate. So that means that most of the terrain that you're skiing is quite close to the ocean. And what that does is it not only gives you quite a bit of snow, but it also means for pretty good stability avalanche-wise. So generally, we're not dealing with any big avalanche problems. We can normally ski steeper terrain. It's not always the case, but generally, that's what we find. A big plus for everyone is, you know, you're standing at the top of a mountain, you're looking down, and you're seeing the ocean, and you're skiing or riding all the way to the sea. And that's super cool, right? Like, you can see your line, and it finishes at the ocean. And so that, I think, for a lot of people is a big thing. The views are absolutely spectacular. You're kind of skiing down, boarding down, you're pinching yourself. You're like, wow, could this get any more beautiful? I mean, look at that. It's just stunning. And then I talked about the different types of terrains. There's everything, right? So we've got like mellow glacier runs, a nice consistent pitch, but we've also got a lot of steeps and couloirs. So we're happy to get after it, you know, if the conditions allow, and we're happy to sort of push it a little bit, right? As long as the conditions allow for it, the terrain will allow us to ski steep faces, to ski couloirs. But also for those that want a more mellow experience, there's also, you know, 30 degrees, 28 degrees. It's all there, right? And we really try to facilitate what you guys want, not what we want. So if you guys say, well, look, we just want a mellow day, no worries, we'll go for a mellow day. And we have 2 guides on all of our trips. So it's quite often that we'll split up into 2 groups. One group will go charge some of the harder stuff, and we'll have another group that has an easier day on some more mellow stuff, or 2 hard groups or 2 mellow groups. You know, it's up to you guys. A big thing about Greenland for us and for people who come on our trips is the discovery, right? So we've been running trips there for about 10 years, and we're still finding new places, and we actively go out and look for these places. We're definitely going to be going and skiing places that we know are good, but we're also going to, you know, pick a day or 2 where we go out and we try and go to somewhere new. And when we do that, it becomes like an adventure for everybody. And a lot of the times we find really cool things. Like, this is a huge glacial cave that we just happened to come across while we were in a new zone. Super cool for you, but, you know, super cool for us too. The skiing is the focus. It absolutely is the focus 100%, but the days are long, and you know, folks do get tired from time to time. So there are a bunch of other things about Greenland that are pretty fun too. So it was a sunny day. We could have gone skiing. We're like, you know what? We're going to take a rest day. The whole week was sunny. And we went out, we took dog sleds out onto the ice. The locals cut a hole in the ice for us, and we went fishing, and we got a bunch of fish. This is a wolf fish, super tasty. Brought it back to where we were staying and cooked it up. The skiing is the focus, but we also want to provide a really rich experience with a bunch of other things so that you feel like you're coming back with not just a ski experience, but this whole Greenland experience. So in March and April, and they finish, and you can't see them in early May, it's a great place to see the Northern Lights. So you in these villages, in these towns, or on the boat, and, you know, you've got the Northern Lights dancing over your head. From about early May, the light gets too long during the day and you can't see the Northern Lights. But before that, it's a pretty cool feature of the ski trips. Spectacular icebergs, whether or not, you know, a lot of the times they can be embedded in the ice if the fjord's frozen like this one, and you're able to walk right up to it and get quite close to an iceberg. We also quite regularly see them when we're transiting on the boats. So yeah, icebergs are a pretty cool feature of the trip. And a lot of times you're skiing down a run, and it's actually, you're looking at the fjord and it's full of icebergs that have come off the glacier. It just sort of adds this extra beauty to the place that you don't get in many other parts of the world. The wildlife is a big part. So we regularly see whales. Occasionally we see Arctic foxes, and very occasionally we see polar bears. And we've had it on ski trips where we've been in Greenlandic villages and a polar bear's walked through the village and that sort of thing. So we do take precautions when we're skiing. The guides will ski with a gun. Never had to use it, thankfully, knock on wood. But just to have the ability to see whales and Arctic foxes and polar bears while on a trip, it's super cool. One of the biggest things I think about Greenland, and from what our guests say is the culture, the people. We really try to build an immersive experience into our trips. So we encourage you to get to know the people. We facilitate that, but we also give you a whole bunch of, we educate you about the history and the culture and the traditions. And once you kind of get into it and once you kind of understand it and see how the land has shaped these people and sort of made them who they are, people come away with it just being like, wow, like that's super cool. And this kind of lends into it. Like this trip, it is a ski trip, but it's a real adventure. We have an itinerary, but we rarely follow it. We want you to go into this trip feeling like you're going on a real adventure, like you're being part of something unusual, unique, different, right? And that's a big part of this trip. A lot of the times we never know exactly how a trip's going to go. It's always going great, but a lot of the times we'll start at plan A and we'll work our way to plan B and plan C. And as long as you go into that knowing that, right, like you were part of this, it makes for a really fun experience instead of just following a script. As I mentioned previously, we've got a few different trips. We've got one trip on the West Coast. It's a ski and sail. It's a boat-based trip, runs in April and early May, 8 days long, and you transit through Manitouk. 10 guests and 2 guides. We've got a heli-ski trip in East Greenland. So on the other side, it's hotel-based in March and late May, 8 days through Kulusuk, 8 guests, 2 guides. And also on the East Coast, a ski touring trip. And it's a village-based trip, again, through Kulusuk. It's later. It's in May and early June. It's a much smaller group, so 4 guests and 2 guides. And that's because it's logistically quite a challenging trip. So we'll talk about those in a little more depth. But let's start with what's the big difference between the West Coast and the East Coast? So the West Coast was colonized much earlier than the East Coast. And that's to a large degree because the ice on the East Coast, it comes across from the North Pole, it hits the East Coast of Greenland, and then it slides down the East Coast, and it really blocks all sort of boat traffic, any shipping traffic from reaching the East Coast. That has meant that the people on the East Coast have been basically cut off from Western civilization until about 1890. And even today, you can't reach the East Coast for about 6 months of the year by boat. You can only fly in. And so you cannot get any goods coming into the East Coast. So that IKEA kitchen that you ordered, that's going to take 6 months to arrive, depending on when you order it. Or Amazon Prime, that doesn't exist on the East Coast, right? But the West Coast is largely ice-free. So shipping can get in there, and it's meant that it's developed a lot more. It's quite a bit more modern, in relative terms. Let's talk about the West Coast first. It's essentially a series of huge fjords. Like it's a fjord system that runs up almost the entire coastline. The mountains reach to about 2,500 meters all the way from sea level. It's large areas of glaciation, right? So yeah, big mountains, 2,500 meters right to sea level with big glaciers. So just logistically, how does it work? You fly into Manitouk. We talked about it. You go through Copenhagen to get to Manitouk. That may change. They're supposed to expand the Nuuk airport, so that may be the new route. We'll meet you on day 1 when we'll go to the boat. We ski every single day except for day 8, which is a transit day, and then you fly out on that transit day. This is just a short movie just to give you a sense of the place and the skiing. Okay, so one of the things that I think is really cool about a boat-based ski trip is, you're cruising down these fjords and you're looking up at the mountains and you're figuring out ski lines. Like you're like, oh, can we ski that? We ski that. It's this really cool, fun experience where you're like, it's all laid out there on a palette for you. And you just kind of get to pick and choose what you want. And we quite often do that. And then we'll say to the captain, look, we're going to go ski that. Can you drop us off here? And then he'll do that and anchor and then pick us up later in the day. So the flexibility that a boat gives you in a place like West Greenland is super cool. This is the boat we use. It's called the Kissak. It's 90 feet long. It's an ice-strengthened expedition boat. So it's a really nice balance between comfort and functionality. It's cozy, it's warm, it's well set up for ski touring. And we really like it for the purpose of running a ski sail trip. I think one of the best things about a boat-based trip is just the camaraderie that develops while on a trip. You know, you're out there skiing all day and then you come back to the boat, it's warm, it's nice. You've still got all the mountains there that you've skiing. A lot of the times you can see the line that you've skied. So you come back, you have it, you drink and you tell stories. It's just a really great atmosphere that goes on the boat, and it's super comfortable, right? Like there's no hardship here. It's really great. But if you want to kind of get away and just sort of have some quiet time, we have this nice pilot house on the upper deck. There's a lounge. You can sort of get away from everything, but you can also kind of sit up there and watch the world go by as we navigate through the fjords in a nice warm environment. And you can chat with the crew, and they're super lovely. They're super nice. This is the captain. He's also the owner. His name's Tatsi. He's West Greenlandic. So the whole crew is Greenlandic. So there's a first mate, there's a deckhand, and there's a dedicated chef. But the really nice thing about having a Greenlandic crew is that you can ask them questions about the place, and they're really, really happy to kind of give you all the information you need about the place, about the history, about the mountains. Like they know it so well, and it gives you this really, really rich experience. But they're also incredibly accommodating. Like they really want you to have a really great time. And Tatsi's a fabulous guy. Like we love working with these guys. You know, you can sit inside, but there's also, the boat has some really large areas outside too. So some big deck space. So, you know, you bundle up and you head outside with a cup of tea or a beer and you can watch the world go by as we move through the fjords. It's really nice. The skiing is really important on a ski trip, but the food is equally important. So as I mentioned, we have a dedicated chef. The food, it's not gourmet, but it's good ski touring food. So it's hearty, it's plentiful. There's lots of it, and we can cater to all different dietary needs. We sort of mentioned like moving through the fjord, looking for ski lines. But, you know, the other thing that's super cool about being on a boat-based ski trip is you're down in your cabin, you're putting on your ski gear, you're buckling up your boots on the upper deck, and then you're getting into the Zodiac and we're handing you down your skis, and you're getting in the Zodiac and you're looking up at the line you're about to ski just in front of the boat. And that feels really unusual. Like where else are you going to have a ski experience like that? And so you're moving into the beach with your skis in the Zodiac and you're looking up at the line. And West Greenland is really, really well set up for boat-based ski touring. Like once you leave the shore, you're straight into the terrain. It's not these long valleys you got to walk up. It's basically straight up into the terrain. And then you're moving up through the terrain, like these incredibly spectacular places, big walls, big glaciers. Just like, wow, where are we? Like, what is this place? And then you can get up onto the summit. Anytime you're on a summit, it's amazing, right? But here you're looking down at your ski line. A lot of the times you can see the boat in the distance down on the ocean. And you're just like, wow, like look at this place. And then, you know, you retrace your steps, or sometimes we do loops. You're skiing down, looking at the ocean, the boat's there. Again, you're pinching yourself just going, what is this place? Quite often we're skiing powder. If it's in the early May through till March times, like that's we're hunting powder. You're skiing powder all the way to the ocean, all the way down to the ocean. And then you finish the run. You literally unclick your skis and you step down onto the beach. Like you step down onto the beach, put your skis on your shoulder, and you walk over to the Zodiac, and then you look back up and you can see the line that you're skiing. You're like, really? You just stepped off the snow onto the beach and into a Zodiac and you're heading back to the boat? Pretty awesome. So as I said, like skiing is the focus, obviously. I'm pretty passionate about the skiing, but we do other things. The days are long. This is Jameson here. He got out the fishing line, and in the space of about 2 hours, he had something like 10 fish. We filled them up that evening and we cooked them up. Super good. Tatsi is big into kayaking. He's got several kayaks on board the boat. If you want a little bit of cross fitness or you just kind of want to do something different, kayaking is a really nice way to just get a sort of a different perspective of the place. Yeah, like he's happy to take you guys out, you know, at any time, and it's totally up to you when you go. It's your choice. We visit a Greenlandic village, a small Greenlandic traditional fishing village called Pangamut. This is really cool. We normally stop in there while we're transiting between different ski areas. And Tatsi's friends with all these guys. So you go into this village and they all, hey, Tatsi, Tatsi, Tatsi. And he introduces you to them. And then the ice is broken. You get a chance to walk through the village and they're going to tell you about, you know, what the village is like and what their life is like and what they've been doing and, you know, the fish they caught and, you know, and what it was like growing up in a place like this. And it really gives you this really rich experience. And you wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have a Greenlandic crew that had this introduction to the people, right? You can walk through the village and they're still going to be friendly to you, but having that ability to sort of have the introduction, it makes it such a better experience. So that was West Greenland, okay? So boat-based trip, West Greenland. Let's move over to East Greenland. And we run two different ski trips there. We run a heli-ski trip and a ski touring trip. Obviously quite different, the two of them. So let's revisit this map here and just go back to the big difference between the East and the West. And we were talking about the ice, right? Like the ice really has defined East Greenland. It is super cool. Like it's a really cool part of that place, but it's also makes it quite a logistically challenging place. So this is Arthur here. Arthur's standing at the top of one of our ski runs on the outer coast. And he's looking out towards Iceland. And what looks, I mean, you could interpret that as being just a glacier, but what that is it's millions and millions of pieces of ice. And that ice extends between about halfway from Greenland to Iceland, a long way out. And as I said, it blocks the boat traffic from getting in. And what that's meant through history is that the local culture has, they've really kept their traditional culture. It's largely stayed intact. And most Arctic cultures, most Inuit cultures, they've sort of lost their traditions. And so in East Greenland, hunting and dog sledding and fishing are really big parts of their culture. Like the most revered man in a village is the best hunter. And so when you visit this place, that's fully on display and you are part of it. And that's a really cool experience to have, which largely you can't get these days. Let's just look at the villages of East Greenland, and we're going to focus on where we visit or where we stay. But you fly into the little town of Kulisuk. There's an airstrip there. And then if you're on our heli-ski trip, you take a helicopter straight over to Tasiilaq, and that's where we're based for the heli-ski trip. And if you're on the ski touring trip, we use either boats or dog sleds or snowmobiles or a combination of all to get up to Kumiut, the small town, a very small settlement of Kumiut. And then from there, we're accessing all this terrain up here. Let's look at the heli-ski trip first of all. So the East Greenland heli-ski trip, just to kind of revisit this, we'll meet you at the airport, and after safety briefings, we get straight into the ski program. So we're basically getting you guys to change in the airport, and we're getting in the machine and we're going skiing for the afternoon. We ski every day that weather allows, including the last day, and it's 8 skiers with 2 guides in 2 different groups. This is a short video about heli-skiing in Greenland.
Something good. Oh, something good. Oh, something good tonight. Make me forget about you, To get high, hit the floor before you go.
Okay, so we stay in the town of Tasiilaq. It's the largest town on the east coast of Greenland. It's a really beautiful place, and it's well set up for running a heli-ski trip. This is a view from the hotel that we stay in. So you've got this village with the frozen fjord behind it and the mountains, and it's super cool to be staying in this Greenlandic village, but then using a helicopter to go and access terrain. And the Greenlanders, they're used to helicopters, right? Like, as I said, getting from one place to the next is a real logistical challenge. So for large period of times during the year, the only way to get to different settlements is by using a helicopter. So it's not like they're not used to helicopters, but to utilize them for heli skiing, that's pretty cool, right? We take safety really seriously on this trip. It's probably the 3rd question we field about heli skiing in Greenland, first being the weather, second being the snow, and then safety. So we use A-Star B3 helicopters. They're the same machines that you would use if you went small group heli skiing in Canada or Alaska. Okay, they're maintained to a high degree. And then, the pilots we use are well trained. This is Tim. He's the owner of the company. He's also the chief pilot. He's a very good pilot. He's very safety conscious. The way we work the program is for a couple of days, we'll ski closer to town. So we'll try to maximize the skiability. We might ski runs, like good runs that we find a few times. We'll lap them a few times. So you get a lot of skiing in a short period of time, or a lot of skiing during the day. The runs start at about 1,000 meters to 1,500 meters, and they almost all finish at the ocean. And then generally we're skiing sort of boot top to knee deep powder, okay? Boot top to knee deep powder. It's not your waist deep BC powder, but it's really fun, good skiing. For a couple of days, generally for the best weather days, we'll go fly way out there. Like we'll go way out into the distant glaciers, and we'll go try to find runs that have never been skied before, and we'll go like discover new places. It's super cool, right? So one of the really huge advantages of having a helicopter in a place like East Greenland is that you know, obviously the access is really, really difficult to places, but having this machine just allows you to go to places that very few people have ever been, if anyone, in certain areas, right? And so you're skiing these runs that potentially no one's ever skied before. And that really, like, the excitement you get when, you know, the guides are looking for new runs, like we're scouting the terrain and we're kind of on-siting it. Like that's a cool experience for people and for us. The heli-ski trip is more than just a ski trip, right? Like it's obviously the skiing is the focus. It's, you know, you're going to hear me say this a few times, obviously, but we want you to walk away with a feeling like you've had a really rich experience. So if there are down days, like, so if we can't fly because of weather, and there's generally 1 or 2 per week, that's not a bad thing. Like we utilize those days. So on those days, we'll organize for you to go dog sledding. You can also go ski touring right from Tassilak, like put your skis on in the town and go off into the mountains. So you can go dog sledding, ski touring. There's a really great museum. So we'll take you to the museum, and the curator there will give you a full like talk about like the culture and the history and you know, and how these people have lived in this place for centuries. We really want you to have this, you know, even though we're on a heli-ski trip, we really want you to have this rich experience, this full experience. So you walk away going, wow, like the skiing was awesome, but whoa, what a place, how incredible that these people have lived here like this for this long. It's just, yeah, it's really amazing. Let's look at the ski touring trip. So moving away from heli skiing to ski touring, and then just the logistics again. So you fly into Kulusuk. We ski 6 out of the 8 days. And this is a really immersive experience. I'll tell you all about that in a sec. But we use dog sleds and boats to access the terrain. So we stay in a town called Kumiut. It's a small town. This, you know, officially I think it's got 200 people, but it's probably less than that. So a really small traditional village. Okay. And it's about 40 kilometers from Kulusuk. So it's further north. It's reputed to have or get the most precipitation, so have the most snow in that whole area. And it's nestled right in the mountains. So the terrain is right in the village. Like you're looking up at the mountains, you're going to ski right out of the village. And we stay in a little house right in the village. And that lends itself to being like a really cool experience. So you'll ski down to the house, and then you have time to go and, you know, walk around the village and meet the people and see what they're up to and kind of get a sense of how they live their lives. The house is super comfortable. It's really nice. It's a Greenlandic house, so it's not 5-star accommodation, but it's warm, it's cozy, and we just love it, right? Because what do you need for ski touring? You know, if you're used to staying in huts, this is a step up for that. Yeah, as I said, you know, you're walking out of the hut, you're getting straight into the terrain. So this is we're actually walking on the ocean in this photo. So we're walking back towards the village. The ice can extend for like 1 kilometer out from the village during the winter. And then you're skiing right from town into the terrain on a couple of the days. On the other days, we use dog sleds and we use boats. So we'll organize that the night before. And then the day it's going to happen, we'll meet down on the ice with the dog sled team or the boats, and we'll head out. And this is super fun because, again, like you're moving through the fjords and looking up at the terrain and being like, hey, what do we want to ski? Yeah, the Greenlandic people, while we're doing it, like they're going to be telling you, you know, they're not going to be worried about the skiing. They're going to be thinking about like, okay, you know, they're going to be looking for seals and they're going to be looking for polar bears, but they're going to tell you about where they saw a polar bear or where they saw a seal and, you know, the interactions they've had. And that, again, it's just this really cool experience that you're going to get while you're there. And then while you're dog sledding, right, you're heading out into the terrain, watching all these cool ski runs and big mountains slide by. You're sitting with the musher, and, you know, again, he's going to be telling you about all these aspects about the place that you're moving through. And it's, you know, you couple that with just this incredibly beautiful place and these, you know, these dogs pulling you along, and it's just like, well, where are we here? Like, this is crazy. Being on the back of a dog sled, it's a really nice, it's an amazing experience, but it's also like, it's kind of chaotic. You got these 10 dogs, they've all got a mind of their own. You've got some that are real workers, some that are lazy, some that want to do their own thing. And the musher will be there, like, you know, he'll be making all these crazy noises to try to control them. You know, he might even get out the whip, which, you know, he doesn't, you know, tends not to use on them, but like, you know, it's more of a threat to get them in line. But it's just, you know, it's this really, you're like, what is going on here? This is crazy. We'll get to a place, we'll ski tour up, and then, you know, again, like the scenery is so tough to beat. In May and June, which is when we run this ski touring trip, We're skiing corn. So, I mean, I love skiing corn. It's just so predictable, but it also, it also means it's really nice and warm and pleasant. Like a lot of the times you're skiing up in a t-shirt and skiing down in just a sweater or whatever. And you're skiing from summit all the way to the ocean, this perfect corn line, looking down at the ocean, just going, wow, this is spectacular. We're still discovering new places. On this particular occasion, we referred to the ice cave before. This is another example. We were walking up this valley and we saw an ice cave in the distance. It looked really small from afar. And then as we got closer and closer, it was big. And then, we're like, wow, look at this place. Every trip, we're trying to find new places. We're discovering new things. And it just feels like a real adventure. Like, it feels like it's an unscripted thing. And we want that. And this photo lends to that as well. So this is the boat that we use to get to Kumiut, the village. And every single time we go from Kulusuk to Kumiut, we don't know exactly how it's going to go. And that's because you talked about the ice is constantly shifting. And so if the ice moves in, then we can't use the boats from Kulusuk. So a lot of times what we'll need to do is we'll use a snowmobile or dog sleds, and they'll come out to about halfway from Kulusuk to Kumiut. And then the Kumiut boats will come and meet us. And so when we meet you at the airport, we're like, guys, we're not exactly sure how this is going to go, but we're going to get there somehow. And we just need you to be flexible and trust that we're going to get there. And we've always got there, but it's always been an adventure. And that's what we want. And so in this particular occasion, we were able to get there, but to get through, we ended up having to break through ice. And you can kind of see this lead that we had to we created. And it was, the boat had to sort of go up onto the ice and then break through it, and then go up onto the ice and break through it. And then just slowly, we were able to get to ice that was strong enough to walk on. And that was about 1 kilometer from the village. So that was where we unloaded the bags and moved. But, again, it's just this, we're on a boat, it's breaking through the ice to try to get to a Greenlandic village to go skiing, and you're surrounded by these beautiful mountains and sunshine. It's like, where are we here? So who are these trips for? If you're on a ski touring trip, we ask that you're able to ski or skin uphill for 1,200 meters per day. So for consecutive days. We don't always go to 1,200 meters. Sometimes we do more, sometimes we do less. We ask that everybody heli-skiing or ski touring can ski Black Diamond Run. So you're an advanced skier, you're not an intermediate skier, in a variety of conditions. So, we're in a remote place. We want stronger skiers. We don't want intermediate skiers. Generally, you're on your skis for about 8 hours each day. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes not as long, but generally about 8 hours a day. And the fitter you are going into the trips, whether it's heli-skiing or ski touring, the more you're going to enjoy the trip, right? The better you're going to feel after a bigger day. So yeah, we just recommend that people come with a good level of fitness. And because we have 2 guides on every trip, we can tailor the trip to the group. As I mentioned earlier, if we've got a group that just wants to ski more mellow runs and not do as much vertical, no problem. One guide will go with them. And then, we've got another group that wants to ski some harder stuff, some more advanced terrain. Another guide will join that group. So yeah, we can really tailor it to your needs. And then, as I mentioned, safety is a big thing. So we take it very seriously in Greenland. We're in a very remote place with limited resources, and all the guides are ACMG, so Association of Mountain Ski Guides, or IFMGA guides. If you're on the heli-ski trip, we provide you with airbags, with transceivers, with probes, with shovels. That's all provided to industry standards. For the ski touring trips, we ask you bring your own gear, and we're going to check your gear when you show up. And the helicopters on heli-ski trips are to industry standards, and as is the maintenance program and the pilots. That's kind of all of the trips and the place, logistics. But to actually go through all of our incredible ski trips, it's awesome. And I love Greenland. Greenland is an incredible place. So hopefully, you guys can come out and explore this amazing part of the world with us.